Hello everyone, welcome to Ripperod Science. In today's episode, we'll be answering the question of how storms affect bass movements. Let's get straight into it. When people think of a storm, they imagine heavy winds, some thunder and lightning, and to stay under shelter. But what happens on the outside, or more specifically, deep down below in the water? Temperature, wind, precipitation, and barometric pressure are all factors that affect bass behavior. In order to secure your catch, you must make sure you adjust these things appropriately. Whenever warm and cold air masses meet, storms begin to brew. In the process, there are often rapid changes in temperature, wind direction, and barometric pressure that affect fishing. Surprisingly, many different weather scenarios can actually improve fishing. According to Bone on Sportswear, slowly approaching storm fronts often stimulate the local bass to move and feed. The dark skies and dropping air pressure that precedes these storm systems can produce some of the most productive fishing you'll ever have the chance to enjoy. Bass often move to deeper waters during storms, and they'll stay there for some time afterward. They'll also tend to move away from major structures and cover when rain starts to fall. This subsequently makes it a lot harder and difficult to fish for bass. However, there's a solution and a third option for finding good luck when fishing: going right after a storm. This has a similar success rate as fishing a day or two before the storm. As the storm recedes or dissipates, the water returns to normal and both bait fish and game fish return once again. This will often be, depending on the size of the storm, after hours and days of struggling to find food, so the bass will be more likely to bite what they can get. Some of the issues for fishing during a storm will affect the situation soon after as well. The bass are still likely to remain deeper in water, so be prepared to fish deep, and consider the current in your choice of a fishing location. The extra water added to rivers increases the current speed and strength, causing bass to move behind the current breaks where they can rest and ambush prey. Therefore, it would be best to position your boat downstream of points and bridge pillings and cast upstream of this obstruction. First, let's consider wing strength. Usually, a howling wind would trigger bass into biting more often, except when temperatures are usually very cold. In that case, it's better to find a calm spot in the sun. Therefore, during summer and fall, it's better to fish in heavier winds, while in winter and spring, a calm, warmer place is best. This is also supported by the spawning stages of a bass. Bass most commonly spawn in the spring, where they will seek warm water and protected areas to build nests, making it more difficult to catch them unless you seek calmer areas. In summer and fall, however, a stout wind activates the fish to hunt, so these are the best times to seek a windy spot. Another condition to consider when fishing is the tide, more specifically when seeking fish in the ocean. When looking at the tide, there are 5 factors which change bass movement: axis, vision, comfort, feeding stimulus, and food concentration. Both sides alternate in their pros and cons, so it's up to anyone to make their choice. Rising water allows fish and fishermen to reach further into shoreline vegetation, and due to its cool nature, more oxidation allows bass to perk up on the surface. But the cover pulls over the bass habitats and is slightly worse for the aggressiveness of their feeding stimulus. Falling water, on the other hand, exposes many shallow bass habitats, and it creates aggressive feeding, which bass catch onto, and becomes filtered to allow clearer conditions for feeding, but pulls the game fish into deeper zones. Both are equal in their food concentration, with each simply pulling their bait schools with the movement of the water. The last condition would be temperature. Often assumed as one of the most important, it surprisingly plays one of the least influential roles when it comes to bass movement during heavy storms. For an average day of the year, 55 degrees Fahrenheit and 85 degrees Fahrenheit doesn't have much of a difference on their behavior, as bass can tolerate high and low temperatures pretty well. Since most of them are typically in shallower water, they can still receive the necessary amount of sunlight and elevate their temperature, even during colder months. Bass also move because their food relocates as well. When waters approaching fall season drop, shad move shallow, and so do the bass, as they move towards the bays and cove areas where their prey reside, and hunt in the warmer locations. When it comes to seasons, temperature has more of an effect. When the days shorten and the air temperatures fall, water starts to get cold, and subsequently bass at temperatures lower than 50 degrees move to the deeper water in lakes and rivers. Since they spend most of their time here during the winter, they don't need to consume and eat as much, because a meal or two is satisfying enough for their stomachs. Because of their dormancy in the winter, hence, it's why the season is given the name the impossible catch for fishing. So, to summarize it all up, not just as the physical movement of approaching storms change bass patterns, but also the certain components, such as temperature, wind, and tide strength, that all affect how this species of fish navigates its waters. Anytime you want to go bass fishing, you should take careful consideration of these factors. It takes more than luck, but rather lots of practice to get better at it. The more you fish, the more you'll find those fish and catch them, no matter the time of year. So, be sure to bring all your tools and be prepared for what is to come. Well, this is Ripperod Science signing off. Peace.